Namaskar and welcome to another episode of NatStrat Conversations. I am Pankaj Saran. In this series of NatStrat Conversations, we bring you discussion topics on geopolitics, on security, on technology and economy. Today, we have a very special guest as part of our series on religion and geopolitics. We have with us today Venerable Khensur Rinpoche Ji, who is a Tibetan scholar who is based and was born in Himachal Pradesh and is the Secretary General of the International Buddhist Conference that is based in New Delhi. Buddhism is a very, very important aspect of Indian culture. It has its roots in India going back millennia, and the International Buddhist Conference is the premier organization and body which brings together all the different strands of Buddhism in India. So today, we are delighted to have Venerable Rinpoche with us, and we will ask him about the conference, about the organization, as well as about Buddhism and what it means for India and for the rest of the region. बहुत बहुत आपका स्वागत है Khensur Rinpoche जी आज के शो में NatStrat. Very warm welcome to you. Thank you very much for coming.
I'm very happy to be here, Pankaj ji. It's a great pleasure to be on this platform of NatStrat, and the topic that you just explained is vast and profound. I hope I will do some kind of justice to that topic.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. Let me begin by asking you, for the audience, can you tell us a little bit? You took over a few months ago as the Secretary General of the International Buddhist Conference. Can you tell us a little bit about this conference and your role in it?
You see, International Buddhist Confederation is an important Buddhist organization that was kind of born due to its need at a particular time. We see that the global kind of nature of Buddhism has been kind of strengthening since it spread out of India for many kind of millennia.
Yeah.
Now it's not just kind of confined to the Asia. It has moved out from Asia and then moved to the Europe and Africa and kind of America and many other countries. Under such circumstances, India as a place where Buddhism has taken its birth have to kind of boldly come out and take the lead to kind of take care of this valuable treasure that the human kind kind of owns. Sure. So for that reason, the kind of visionary Indian leadership has felt like this kind of organization is required, and then they have kind of discussions and kind of exchange of ideas with the global Buddhist leaders, and they decided the International Buddhist Confederation, an umbrella Buddhist organization, should or must kind of be based in India. Of course, there are other Buddhist organizations, international Buddhist organizations, which are outside India, but we need something that is based in India. So that is the reason why it was kind of produced and it was born. Now, the most important thing is like, unlike other religion, like Catholicism is a completely centralized religion. Yeah. And similar to that, there are other religions which are completely centralized. But Buddhism is not like that. It's very deeply fragmented. So, a so deeply fragmented religious kind of community which has its roots and it's all the kind of most precious holy places based in India, India has a natural responsibility to do something for it.
Very good. That's a very important aspect.
So I do believe those leaders visionary leaders have taken some kind of a collective decision and came out with the idea. And since the organization came into existence, it has done wonderful things. It has created a kind of common platform, and in all these different varieties of Buddhist communities in a global level, they come together and they share their problems, they discuss their issues, they discuss the challenges they face, and then they collectively try to find out a solution, how to find out a good solution for those things. So this is helping a lot.
No, that's great.
Wonderful thing.
That's great. I mean, who are your primary or the principal countries or partners as part of this confederation? I mean, are there countries of Southeast Asia or?
We have members from all these kind of major Buddhist countries like Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and kind of Nepal, and then kind of Bhutan and Mongolia, and all these kind of Buddhist countries. And outside of the Buddhist countries, there are kind of sizable Buddhist communities. And we also have members from those kind of countries where, though the country is not a Buddhist country, but they do have a sizable Buddhist community. So we do have some kind of members from all these different varieties of Buddhist kind of population and Buddhist communities in the Asia, and then also from Europe and America, and all the way from Africa too. So it's a kind of a real, in a real sense, it's a global.
No, that's excellent. So in your experience, as you have been in this for some time now, what is the acceptability of these countries and these Buddhist communities to the IBC and the origins of Buddhism in India? I mean, it's a historical fact, but how are they responding and reacting to this organization and its activities?
You see, in all these well-established Buddhist countries, the kind of identity of India as a source of wisdom and a source of kind of Buddha's teaching has been established kind of millennia back, and they are kind of sustaining it. And of course, in the kind of human history, we go through a lot of ups and downs. In those ups and downs, some kind of little things sometimes fade away, sometimes some little new things kind of are built up. So, somehow, this kind of approach and this image of India in all these Buddhist countries are kind of unimaginable. Just let me talk about one example. In most of all the Tibetan literature, they talk about India as a land of Aryas. Arya here is not a reference for a particular race. It is a reference for highly evolved spiritual beings. So, entire nation is looked up as a holy land. It's not just a Buddha's birthplace or a Buddha's kind of a parinirvana place. Entire nation is looked up as a holy place.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw in the last few weeks the images in Thailand, in Sri Lanka of the Buddha's relics and the hundreds and thousands of people who were out to pay their respects. So obviously there is a huge attraction and respect to the Indian tradition. But within the Indian tradition, can you explain a little bit to us about the traditional wisdom about there being a kind of a Tibetan form of Buddhism and the Nalanda tradition? How would you explain the different strands of Buddhism?
You see, we have to think in a very practical way. Buddhism has been existing for more than 2 millennia.
Correct.
It is older than 2,500 years. So, if something is older than 2,500 years, it has to go through the ups and downs. It has to go through a lot of kind of adding up and kind of subtraction and a lot of things. So, from that point of view, all these Buddhist traditions, like the Buddhist tradition in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, which shares a lot of similarities. We call it Theravadin Buddhism.
Exactly.
Theravadin Buddhism. Yeah. They share a lot of similarities. But then when we go to the Buddhist countries like Korea, Japan, and China and Taiwan and these countries, they share a lot of similarities within themselves. Those are known as Mahayana Buddhism. Now then comes like Tibetan and Mongolian and then Bhutan. They share a lot of similarities, and also in the northern Himalayan region of India, they share a lot of similarities. Those are part of a Mahayana, but they have their own identity named as a Vajrayana Buddhism, or sometimes we also say Tibetan Buddhism, or sometimes we also say Nalanda tradition. So what is the important part here is all these things, though they appear, though all of them agree that they are Buddhist,
yeah,
and in appearance they are different, but all of these, without any differences, they try to establish that they are originated from India. That is a very common thing that we have to notice. Of course, we have to accept that. There are certain ancient variety of form of Buddhism, and then in the course of time there were some changes, and that has added up, and then due to that some appears a little bit different, which is known as the Mahayana, and then later on the latest version of evolved stage is the Vajrayana. So India as a nation where all these traditions have its roots should be having an unbiased approach towards all of them.
Yeah.
Then it will be really wonderful.
Now, Bodh Gaya is considered to be the seat, but there is a lot of room for improvement in the infrastructure and the upkeep of Bodh Gaya. Is your organization also addressing issues or relating to the improvement, preservation, protection of ancient monuments and pilgrimage sites?
These are some of those major concerns of us. These are also major concerns of Buddhist devotees all over the world. But there are technical issues with those things. Technically, in India, you cannot improve and you cannot change any archaeological sites.
Yeah.
This is one of the technical issues that is a hurdle that we are facing. Now, Bodh Gaya is a little bit different thing. According to the Indian a law, if it is a holy place which is under use of the public during the independence, then it can be improved. But still, it is coming under the Archaeological Survey of India.
Yes.
So there are a lot of restrictions. So there are those things. So this is a very, very complicated issue. It is needed to be addressed in a much more wider angle rather than just one organization trying to do everything. I don't think it can be done in that way. But these are the real major concerns that we have in our heart, and we look forward to do something, and we hope with the help of the state governments and the central government and then culture ministry and a lot of other ministries involved, like particularly like tourism ministry. A lot of things can be done.
Yeah, because you have hundreds and thousands of pilgrims and devotees every year coming from all parts of the world, including through chartered flights.
Sure, of course, yes.
For pilgrimage to Bodh Gaya. So I think it's a critical importance.
It's the from economic point, it's very important. From a cultural point, it's very important. And from the point of the the image of the nation in a global level, in the international arena, it's furthermore important. So we have to, Indian government and Indian a strategical calculation should be in that direction. And there are also some places even the excavations also didn't happen. So there are some minor places like that. We hope more such excavation will happen, and then those will be kind of make available for the public viewing and those kind of things.
Because the Buddhist tradition is so rich that we need to preserve and we need to promote.
Of course,
Both.
yes.
Both.
Yeah. It's really important that we should understand, or we must understand, Buddhism not as a kind of a group of a kind of a people, or a kind of a faith or a religion. India should be kind of looking at the Buddhism as its asset, the holy places as its asset, and the wisdom that has born in this country as one of the most precious asset of this country.
When you want to preserve this wisdom and you want to spread the wisdom, one of the ways to do it is either through the oral tradition or otherwise through scriptures and through books. So what is the status on that? How much of the literature is available to outsiders in languages that they understand? Are you doing something on this?
You see, this is an irony here. There is a kind of a, how to say, a project going on to translate entire kind of a Buddhist canon that is available in Tibetan language into English. But there is nothing like that happening to translate it into any kind of Indian language. Mm-hmm. Any kind of Indian language. There is nothing like that. So similarly, I think unfortunately there are some projects like to translate the Tripitaka from Pali to Hindi language. There are those kind of things. Those are wonderful things. We are grateful such activities are happening. And beside that, the most important thing for these kind of a wisdom culture is to have the access to learn it. And here, the universities can play a role, the schools can play a role, and then the kind of a body of the literature can play a role. But there is also another kind of a aspect of it. The modern schooling system and university system, it is all limited up to kind of acquiring the information. It won't go beyond that. Mm-hmm. But since Buddhism teaches very complex things about how to mend one's own kind of thinking system, one's own kind of mentality and kind of this mental structure, so it requires kind of application of those kind of knowledge into day-to-day life, which is very, very complicated to teach in the universities and those kind of things.
No, while you were talking about translation, I remember a few years ago, we translated a lot of the Tripitaka, I think, into Mongolian language, and we had presented a whole series to Mongolia. And I think there is a very special relationship that we have with Mongolia when it comes to Buddhism. But on the universities that you mentioned, what is the status of the monasteries in the Himalayas and the Tibetan side of the Indian border?
You see, there are these traditional monasteries existing in all over the Himalayan region, from Arunachal in the kind of east to all the way to the Ladakh and Zanskar to the west. Some of these monasteries are kind of more than 1,000 years old, and most of these monasteries are you will hardly find kind of not less than 500 years old. Now there are some monasteries which are just kind of established in past 50 years or something like that. Those are another things. But what happens is in these monasteries, the kind of Buddhist teachings is given in a traditional way. When you teach the Buddhist kind of teachings and the kind of ethics and the philosophy and everything in a traditional way, you're using the language that was kind of prevalent in that area, that locality. So for that reason, they use the Bhoti language. But Bhoti language is in India is an recognized language. So this is a kind of a big bottleneck that the entire Himalayan region is facing. But somehow, I think it appears like the language recognition is more political rather than kind of a strategy and rather than kind of a value. So it's an unfortunate situation, but that is the ground level truth.
Because those are actually the centers of learning, and
Sure,
therefore they play a very critical role.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, do you think that the Confederation is already beginning to have an effect, an impact in terms of followers, in terms of reawakening the Indian roots?
Confederation, most of the time, we cannot go down to the kind of ground to work with these monasteries. It's a kind of to some extent, it's impossible for us to do that. We have a kind of a very limited number of manpower in our hand, and we also have a limitation in our resources. So we cannot do that, but we try to work with other NGOs and other similar organizations and also some government departments to do something in a policy level, in a strategy level, and in a kind of a project level. So for an example, like recently, before the election was declared, a big event happened. The minority ministry of the central government, union government, the minister named Smriti Zubin Irani has kind of inaugurated 38 projects in one go. And then these 38 projects are all targeting the Himalayan Buddhist communities to create some kind of infrastructure, to kind of do something that can help them to enhance their kind of cultural identity and those kind of things. So I think it overall kind of include somewhere around 225 crore allocation from the government fund. And allocations are something different, declaration is something different, and the ground level implementation, hopefully, I'm very hopeful that things will be implemented as it is planned.
Rinpoche ji, I cannot but help asking you, what is the relationship, if any, between the IBC, the International Buddhist Confederation, of which you are the Secretary General, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama? Can you explain a little bit about where you stand?
Yeah. You see, I personally, I'm His Holiness's student. I've received my kind of vows and kind of what you say in Hindi, we say Diksha. I've received from him. So he's kind of a very important, he played a very important role in my life, and that's a personal relationship. But at the organizational level, His Holiness Dalai Lama is one of the patron of this organization. And I think this is a very relevant post that is given to His Holiness, because His Holiness is a kind of a, unchallenged global kind of Buddhist leader. So he, I think no one deserves it better than him.
Yes.
So that is our connection, and then if required, we may seek his advice anytime.
And I believe last year, when you held the first International Buddhist Conference, he was invited and he spoke.
Yes, last year when we kind of organized the first Global Buddhist kind of a summit.
Yes.
He came and he greeted all the kind of international Buddhist leaders, and he spoke. Though he's in such a mature age, but he spoke very well. It was impressive.
No, he's a great inspiration
for
right. The entire Buddhist and, in fact, the global community.
Yeah, of course.
Because he is really the voice of peace and wisdom. So, what are your future goals, and how are you seeing the organization progress in the next few years? And what are your plans for promoting the good work that you are doing?
See, first thing is to strengthen this platform, because what we have seen in past is some kind of such platform may arise and then it kind of vanish away. We want this platform to sustain for a long period, so that to bring good kind of solid result, the sustenance of the platform is very important, first thing. And then after that, after discussing the problems and the challenges faced by the global Buddhist community, I think we need to devise the solutions. Those are important parts of us. But to implement those solutions at the ground level, I think it is not just IBC can do it.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of other hands to strengthen IBC's hands and then kind of power.
No, I think you are in a very, very advantageous position where you have the support of the Indian government and society to revive and to establish the role of India as the global capital, I would say, of Buddhism, of all the sects and all the strands of Buddhism. It's a huge opportunity. And I'm sure that with your dedication and your wisdom, this will happen.
Definitely, we are always thinking of kind of positive things and then good things to happen. But challenges appear everywhere, and then it's our responsibility and our duty to kind of overcome those challenges. And I do believe very strongly that in these past couple of years, the Indian kind of political leadership, even led by the present Prime Minister, also took some kind of active initiatives in this direction. Of course, I know that it is not just that it has happened recently. Just recently, I read a book. Maybe it could be quite interesting for you to read. It's a Dust on the Throne.
Okay.
Dust on the Throne is a very interesting book, and it shed lights on how India was dealing with Buddhism since the British era, the ending portion of the British era. And it shows that during the period of the first Prime Minister, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru put a lot of effort in carrying on Buddhist diplomacy. And he has kind of donated a lot of Buddhist relics to the many Buddhist countries around here. And then he also kind of did other kind of very important activities where he also kind of invited a lot of Buddhist kind of leaders from different countries and then have a meeting with them in Bodh Gaya and a lot of other places.
Yeah.
So those are the very interesting things.
No, I mean, now that we have a organized setup and given the kind of relics and the kind of institutions and the monuments all over the country, I was, the other day I was in Sachi and I saw the stupa there. And when you read the history and you realize the legacy that we have today as Indians of this great tradition, it's a huge asset. And I think apart from the religious discourses which you have, do you also discuss global issues of war and peace and how to coexist, how civilizations can live together? Do you also go into those issues?
Of course, those are
which affect humankind.
Yeah, of course. Those are the kind of how to say we say kind of hot topics, and we cannot avoid those kind of things. After all, we are human beings. We are existing on the same planet, which is our home, kind of a collective home, shared home.
Yeah.
So, if the planet kind of Earth is somehow kind of eradicated, then there is no home for any of us.
So what are the kind of issues? I mean, you look at climate change, global warming.
Of course.
You look at conflicts, you look at wars.
Of course.
What are the kind of...
You see, economy is another thing. Economy is backbone of the human society. Without the economy, human society cannot exist. We also need to look into that. And then we look into those things. And then the economy is dependent on a lot of other things. Peaceful coexistence. If there is no peaceful coexistence, economy cannot flourish. So peaceful coexistence is a very important part of it. So there comes the role of the kind of a disturbance of the war and the battles that is happening at presently, even while we are talking to each other, there are people who are kind of pointing gun to each other. That's unimaginable. But somehow, people are so brainwashed to certain level and extent that they don't care about pointing gun to each other. And this is a kind of an irony of a modern human living.
No, and while you're saying all this, it also strikes me that sometimes Buddhism is also being misused by states and countries which practice something else, but which profess something else. So we have to be very careful that Buddhism is a religion of peace and peaceful coexistence. Whereas behavior of certain states borders on coercion or expansionism or hegemony. So I think we have to be very careful when we talk about Buddhism, especially from certain kinds of state behavior.
Of course, this is really kind of an important issue that we always need to ponder on. We always need to think about. As I told you, like the environment and global warming. Now, as I told you, like this is a common home of us. If this is destroyed, then we have no choice. We have no kind of chances of survival. So we should be collectively working to do something rather than blaming each other.
So what do you do? Any social work? Do a social contribution to society at large?
Of course, we do. We do kind of educate people to do kind of less consumption, which is one of the wisdom of the Buddhas. Buddha has taught like less consumption of resources is very, very kind of relevant for the proper living and the simple living. But unfortunately, it's an irony that the modern economy flourishes on more consumption. So modern economy is built up on these pillars of the more you consume, it's good for the economy. But I think there should be a way. There should be a way. The economists should find out a way how to reduce the consumption and still make the economy flourish.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what the Indian government and the Prime Minister have talked about, this whole initiative of life. That is the whole model of sustainable development, sustainable livelihood, and sustainable lifestyle. I think that is something.
That's very important. And then, like, we now and then hear the news about, reports about, at certain part of the Maharashtra, there is no water. The people are kind of getting water rationed for every day, like this much of liters and those kind of things. Why this is happening today? And if we can take good care of those things, our natural resources, it should not be happening. But unfortunately, our planning is not in the right direction. So the political leadership has their own responsibility and they had their own duties. But at the same time, public also have their own kind of responsibility. We cannot blame everything on someone else.
Yeah, and I think and the clergy, the Buddhist clergy, has a huge role to play.
Definitely, definitely. That's the basic thing that we teach is living in austerity is a kind of a wisdom. But somehow, I think does it really kind of how to say compatible with the modern economy or not? There is a big question mark. I always ponder about that.
So Buddhism can play a critical role in keeping our focus on the way we live as human beings.
Yes, yes.
From that point of view, my last thoughts from you about the next generation, the future. You obviously are in a position to bring up and to mentor younger monks and younger Buddhist scholars. How do you see that? Is the network and the clergy growing? Are there younger generation coming in to follow your footpath, follow your path?
Pankaj-ji, with a heavy heart, I have to tell you that from most of these Buddhist countries, I hear that the newcomers number is dropping. It's a concern for us, but I think it may be kind of a destiny of the humanity. Maybe I think the wisdom can be kind of how to say, dislocated from one place to another place. It may happen in that way. So, like in our monastic community in South India, we are struggling to kind of get the same number of students that we used to get 10 years back.
I see.
Yeah, that is a challenge. That is a challenge for us. What is going to happen after 20 years? What is going to happen after 50 years? That is we don't know which direction we are heading.
So you have a critical role to play.
We can try to convince parents to do kind of contribute their kids. Mm-hmm. The big challenge is the families are getting smaller and smaller. So if you have a small family, how can you contribute your kids to train into the monastic community? So this is a kind of a very complex issue.
Anyway, I think whatever you're doing so far has made a difference. You've had a big event last year. You have a confederation in place and you have a vision in place. And I'm sure that your efforts will succeed. They will not go waste. And it has not come a day too soon that you have decided to go forward and keep the rich legacy and the millennia-old tradition alive. Let me take this opportunity to thank you very much for taking your time off from a very busy schedule, coming to NatStrat on our show, and a lot of gratitude for your time, for your wise words. And thank you so much, Rinpoche-ji, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj-ji, for your kind of invitation. And it's a great pleasure to talk to you in such a kind of friendly and kind of frank environment. And I do feel greatly confident that with the support of the Indian government and kind of major Indian public, Buddhism will kind of flourish for another kind of 1,000 years. And after 1,000 years, what is going to happen? We don't need to worry about that.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Dear listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Today we had a discussion on Buddhism. And as we have heard, it is a religion that has its roots in India, which has a history of at least 2,500 years old. It has an important role to play in today's world that is full of conflict, and we hope that you have been able to hear and listen about this great religion. And I want to thank you for joining us once again as we prepare for our next few episodes. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.